guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're if you're new. Hi, my name is Nastasia, and today I'm talking about, I'm doing kind of one of those fun little sit-down videos, and I'm doing 10 things, or 10 questions I should say, that you need to ask either yourself or the person you're dating before you get in a relationship. So I thought this was a good video because so many of you guys request more like kind of dating relationship advice type videos, and this is something that it really took me back to when I started dating Kai, my husband, and some of the things that I asked him, and it was just, I think it was so important to keep in mind. So if you end up liking this video, give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you never miss out on a video every time I post. My Instagram is right here so you can see the behind the scenes of my life. And yeah, let's get into it. So the first thing, and I believe the most important thing, oh, and this is from a Christian perspective. I know you saw that in the title, but Christian perspective, so if you're not a Christian, you're probably not going to agree with a lot of these, but this is just from my perspective. All right, and the first one is to ask him about his testimony and his current relationship with Jesus and what that looks like. That's usually the very first thing I ask somebody before I even go on a date with them. So like if like somebody asked me on a date or something and we were like texting first or whatever, I would say, well, sure, I'd be interested in that, but I need to know what your relationship with Jesus looks like or like what it looks like right now. And some people would think, wow, that's so strong, it comes on so strong. Okay, well, for me, there's no point of me going if they don't have a relationship with Jesus because it's not gonna work. It's the most important thing in my life. So if it's not the most important thing in his life, the relationship isn't gonna work out. So that's why I say that, and that's not to say that they have to have all the perfect answers or anything. Actually, far from it. Usually it happens to be the most humble and the most kind men are the ones who say like, I don't deserve any of God's grace. I don't know why he wanted me, but he did, and I want to spend the rest of my life worshiping him. You know, stuff like that. Like, it's not like they have to have all of the answers lined up. And just knowing his testimony says a lot too, and like how he got saved and all that stuff. So that's the first thing. Number two, what does his relationship with his parents look like, especially his mom? So the reason I ask this or observe this, I should say this is kind of more of an observation. Like you can ask them, you know, how is it with your parents, whatever, but you really don't know until you see. So if you have the chance to see, that's really important, but especially his mom, because how he treats his mom is almost always reflective of how he would treat a girl in a relationship. So if he treats her with a lot of honor and respect and love and kindness, I'm not saying perfection again, just like, you know, a loving son, then that says a lot. And again, there's always those times where, you know, maybe he doesn't even have a relationship with his mom. Maybe it's a strained situation. I get that. Like, I have that with certain family members, so I understand. But, you know, for the most part, like being able to observe that, ask questions, stuff like that. Number three, what do his boundaries look like when it comes to intimacy? So if you're trying to stay pure before marriage, which is, you know, was my goal, and that's what the Bible lays out as what is honoring to the Lord. So I would say as a Christian, that is what you should be like aiming for. So it's important to ask him, you know, what are your kind of boundaries there? And I'm not saying you have to do all this on the like first date. I'm saying before a relationship, because most of the time people date a little bit for like a couple weeks or a couple months or something before they get into a relationship. And so that's what I'm saying. Like this dating process is all for like questions and learning and stuff before you actually commit to a relationship, in my opinion. Not only seeing if he has the like similar boundaries to you, but does he respect yours? Like maybe this wasn't personally me, but I know people who they didn't even want to kiss until they were engaged. Okay, so if that's the case and that wasn't originally his boundary, is he willing to respect you enough to hold that boundary for you? Like, that is important. So learning those things, asking those questions after a few dates, that should not be a weird thing. Honestly, after a few dates, when you start getting to know each other more and more, if he thinks that's a weird question, that might be a red flag. Number 4, when was his last relationship and why did it end? There's a chance that maybe you are his first relationship, and honestly, that makes it easier for you, in my opinion. But it's so important, I think, to ask those questions. Again, not necessarily the first date. I think that could be a little weird. Like, so tell me about your ex. Like, you know what I mean? But knowing, like, asking those questions of, okay, when was that? And why did it end? Because, you know, if it was something like him cheating on her or something, that's a red flag. Or if she cheated on him, I'm not saying that's a total red flag, because, you know, you can't help what happens to you like that, but it might show you that he might have trust issues at first and stuff like that. So I think it's super important to know. Or if it was like he was immature or something like that. And it also matters how he handles telling you that. Like, if he's like, yeah, I was completely immature, I shouldn't have done it that way, that says something. You know, people change and stuff like that, but it's very important, I think, to know. And especially, I mean, to me, I'm so nosy, I would ask for all the past relationships and ask why and how they ended and stuff like that. But anyway, number 5, this is kind of, I didn't know how to describe this, but other than just saying politics, like talking politics, if that matters to you. But also, I thought about it and I was like, you know, it's not just politics, it's moral issues in general, like social issues. Like, where do they stand on things? Like a big one to me, the most important social issue, moral issue, political issue to me would be pro-life, like being against abortion, because that is very, very, very important to me. So making sure that certain things align the way that it wouldn't cause conflict in the future. I'm not saying you have to be completely the same on everything, but if politics are important to you, I mean, they're important to me. I literally got my degree in politics, so they're obviously important to me. That I asked Kai about politics on the second date. I was like, all right, we were bowling. I was like, so tell me about politics. And he's like, oh no. But no, and it worked out great and stuff. And we have literally the exact same opinions on, like, I don't even know if there's one we have a different opinion on. But I'm not saying, again, that has to be perfect, but it's definitely something to consider, even if you're not into politics, but you're very, like, there are moral issues that are biblical that happen to also be involved in politics and social reforms and stuff like that, that they are the same. And so you have to know, like, with somebody, if they stand on the Bible and they stand for the Bible, but then that does not reflect how they stand for other social things or whatever, then that should be kind of a red flag to you as a Christian. So I think it's definitely good to talk about. Number 6, this is more of an observation, but you could also ask, is he friends with his exes? So I'm actually going to do a video on this at some point of, like, can you be friends with your exes? This is up to you kind of thing. Like, it might not bother you at all, but I have noticed, for me, and I guess for Kai and I just in general, we are not friends with any of our exes at all. We are not in contact with them, nothing like that. We know how, not that we have any interest in being with anybody else or cheating or anything, but we know how slippery that slope is. And not to mention, like, there's a past there. There is, you know, even if you don't have feelings anymore, it could complicate things. It's just not, in my opinion, it's not worth it. Now, I have friends who are friends with their exes, and it doesn't seem to be an issue. I don't know how they do it, but one way or another, it's good for you to know. Whether you agree with it or not agree, it's good for you to know, so that you're not in some uncomfortable situation where they're, like, introducing you to their ex and you have to be totally cool with it. Like, it's just good to know. Number 6, this is more of an observation, but you could also ask, is he friends with his exes? So I'm actually going to do a video on this at some point of, like, can you be friends with your exes? This is up to you kind of thing. Like, it might not bother you at all, but I have noticed, for me, and I guess for Kai and I just in general, we we are not friends with any of our exes at all. We are not in contact with them, nothing like that. We know how, not that we have any interest in being with anybody else or cheating or anything, but we know how slippery that slope is. And not to mention, like, there's a past there. There is, you know, even if you don't have feelings anymore, it could complicate things. It's just not, in my opinion, it's not worth it. Now, I have friends who are friends with their exes and it doesn't seem to be an issue. I don't know how they do it, but one way or another, it's good for you to know. Whether you agree with it or not agree, it's good for you to know so that you're not in some uncomfortable situation where they're like introducing you to their ex and you have to be totally cool with it. Like, it's just good to know. Number 7, again, this is kind of like a question you have to ask yourself and observe and maybe ask him a little bit, but it is, how seriously does he take his role as the spiritual leader? Because as a Christian, biblically speaking, if you're following the Bible, the man is supposed to be the spiritual leader in your relationship. So if he, again, I keep saying this, I think I've said this like 7 times, it doesn't mean perfection. However, it does mean leadership. It doesn't mean you dragging him to church or you dragging him and begging him to read his Bible. Sure, we all have down days and we need some encouragement, but if that's a habit, that is a red flag. And so asking yourself, like, how seriously does he take that role of leadership? Maybe observing like how he, you know, talks to you about Jesus and just like stuff like that. Just really check in on that, because that is so important. Like, I highly recommend you do not get into a relationship with somebody unless you are certain and very confident that they are a spiritual leader in your life. When I was actually dating Kai, like just dating, not in a relationship yet, that was the number 1 question my friends asked. Thank you, God, that I have friends that will ask that question. They were like, does he lead you spiritually? Is he a spiritual leader? Like, that above anything else is what they asked. And over I kept saying, you know what? So far, yes, but I'm looking into it more and more, and over it was yes, 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 yes. So super important. And I can make a video more about what spiritual leadership in the man's role looks like so that you know what to look for. We just don't have time right now. All right, number 8, this is gonna be a little controversial. It's too important to not talk about though. So here we go. Number 8 is, does he currently or has he in the past struggled with pornography? That is a very important question to ask. Now, you might not be as gung-ho about asking it as I was. I asked it on the first date, like after probably 2 hours of talking to Kai. Now, I don't know if I would have planned to, but I truly felt the Holy Spirit pressing on me to ask him that. And it was just very important for me. With just guys I have dated in the past, more often than not, they did have current or past addictions to porn. And I am not saying that that is a complete deal breaker. I'm not. For me, though, it would have been, okay? That's a me thing. There are certain people who maybe they have dealt with alcoholism in their family. So if somebody is super into drinking, that would be a no for them. Like, they couldn't do it. For me, alcohol isn't an issue. So like, that wouldn't be. So like, you have different things you're equipped to handle in a relationship, if that makes sense. So just because for me, that was something God put on my heart that I was not to date somebody again with that issue, does not mean that there is not redemption in that God can't heal from that. Like that. So please don't hear that that's what I'm saying. It is not always a deal breaker. It just was for me. However, I do think it's very important and super heavy. Like, I do think it's a deal breaker if they currently have a struggle and they do not find a problem with it at all. They don't care. They don't see it as biblically wrong. Okay, then that is a red flag to me. That should be a red flag to you. Actually, you should probably just get up and leave. But that's just my opinion. But like, that's not okay. And I dated somebody like that and they're just like, huh, sorry. And they just didn't care. And they claim to be a very strong believer. And what makes it different is if somebody is struggling with something and they're like, I am working so hard to depend on the Lord and to be redeemed from this and to turn my back on this sin. That makes it a totally different story. But yeah, I think it's something very important to keep in mind. and something that for years I never asked, and I found out the hard way that almost all of them had issues with that I dated. And it's a good thing to know, because I consider it cheating if somebody does that when I'm with them. Again, might be different for you. I feel like I'm going in a rabbit trail. But if that's something that you do consider cheating as well, then you need to talk to them about it, and you need to ask where they're at. Again, maybe not the first date, but definitely before you get into a long-term relationship with them. Okay, number 9, does he have close friendships that are girls? Obviously not related to him, like not family, but like a best friend that's a girl. Again, might not be a red flag for you, might not be a deal breaker for you, that's fine. Kai and I have personally decided that we will not have close friends of the opposite sex. That doesn't mean we don't talk to people of the opposite gender or anything like that, but like, let's say I did have a friend who was a guy, and I was gonna go hang out with them, Kai would come with me. Like, that is the boundary we have placed, because we want to be so careful in protecting our relationship and our marriage and our loyalty to each other. And it's just one of those things for me that I have seen friendships of the opposite gender most likely be the ones that end up being affairs. Not always, but I think it's important to figure out, oh, your best friend is a girl. Okay, that's good for me to know. Is that something I feel God has equipped me to handle? Is that something I feel like is healthy for our relationship? Is it a flirty friendship, or is it completely platonic? Is it, would this girl be threatened if I was the one always hanging out with them? Stuff like that, because it's not totally impossible. Like, if, for instance, I had a really good friend that was a guy, the way we would handle it is I would make sure that Kai was always with me hanging out with that guy. And if that guy had a problem with that and been like, I just want to hang out with you alone, I would say, sorry, dude, my husband comes first. It's not happening. So that's how we handle things. Maybe it's not how you do, but either way, I think it's really important to know. And the 10th thing that I think you really need to consider before getting into a relationship is observing how he's pursuing you. Is he pursuing you? Is he a flake? Is he making sure that you have plans set up to see each other again? Is he, being consistent and talking to you and showing you he cares and just really pursuing you biblically? Like, that is so important before you kind of just like jump 2 feet in. I remember I was so careful at first when it came to Kai, because I was like, heck no, I am not getting hurt again. Or if I wanted to make sure that I was guarding my heart. So I guess it means guarding your heart in a way. But the big thing being like, is he afraid to tell you how he feels about you? Or is he open and vulnerable even if you don't do it first? Is he open and vulnerable to be like, I really like you. I want to see you again. Can we get something on the books? Like, that's important. Or checking in and saying like, good morning, I hope you have a great day. Not making you like have to pine after him, because it should be the man pursuing. That doesn't mean you never text him first or anything. Although my cousin, I love this story. My cousin, when she was dating her now husband, when they were dating years and years before, she for like a solid year or 2 or something, never texted him first. Never. Like, ever. Like, he texted her first every single time, and because she wanted to make sure he would pursue her. And I mean, some people might say that's so like over the top, whatever. I mean, they laugh about it now, they make fun of it now, they think it's hilarious now, but actually I think it's such a good thing, and I took such a good lesson from that, because honestly, even if I wasn't texting Kai first ever, it's a little different now that we're married, but when we were dating or something, he should be the one to reach out. He should be the one to check in. And you know what I mean? Like, at one point he was literally like, I don't know how you feel at all. Can you please tell me something? And I finally did. And then he was super happy and all that. But just observing how he's pursuing you. And if he's not, maybe back off. Like, again, I'm not saying you never text him first or never text him good morning, but he should be doing not only the majority, like the vast majority of the making plans and pursuing and all that stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know down below if you want a part 2, because I can totally do that. I asked Kai so many questions, I can totally make part 2. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I love you so much, and I hope you have a great day. Bye guys.